Welcome back to the cryptoworld channel, everyone. My name is Josh, and right now, Bitcoin is flashing an extremely rare signal that we have never seen throughout Bitcoin's entire price history, while Ethereum is actually running into important resistance, which I'll talk about later in the video, so definitely watch to the end. First of all, starting off on the 4-day Bitcoin chart, and right now, as of recording this video, the price of Bitcoin has not really changed on the 4-day time frame over the last 1 day, and so technically speaking, we are still currently within the larger bullish trend, but with that being said, we also currently have a bearish divergence playing out, which basically means we're currently taking a shorter term pause from the larger bullish trend. And if you want to know more about this 4-day Bitcoin chart, then check out my last video on the channel, because once again, not much has changed on this chart over the last 1 day. And now, if you zoom out to the weekly Bitcoin chart, taking a look at the Bollinger Bands indicator and the Bollinger Bands width indicator. First of all, the Bollinger Bands width indicator basically tells us how wide the Bollinger Bands are. So essentially, this width indicator is going to the downside as the Bollinger Bands squeeze together. But on the other hand, when the Bollinger Bands are expanding, then the Bollinger Bands width indicator is increasing, because obviously the width between the bands is increasing. And in case you're new to this channel, basically the Bollinger Bands tell us that a volatile move is coming soon if they are squeezing together, because generally speaking, we see the Bollinger Bands squeeze together after a time period of relatively low volatility. And also during these sort of time periods, we see exchange volumes go to the downside, making it more prone for a volatile move coming soon. And we can actually see this happen in the past. Obviously, we saw a squeeze in the Bollinger Bands right here back in around October, November last year, which resulted in a quick drop in the Bollinger Bands width indicator. And right after that squeeze in the weekly Bollinger Bands, we saw a large move to the downside, followed by a significant move back to the upside over the following months. And if you're looking at the squeeze in the Bollinger Bands before that, we also saw a squeeze in the weekly Bollinger Bands back during around May last year. And obviously around that time and just after May last year, we saw a massive quick crash in the price of Bitcoin, an extremely volatile movement here on the larger timeframes. And we also saw a squeeze in the weekly Bitcoin Bollinger Bands back here during around September 2020, after a period of relatively low volatility on the larger timeframes, and just before an extremely volatile movement, which in that case was a bullish movement. And so once again, a squeeze in the Bollinger Bands basically tells us that some sort of major move is coming soon, a volatile move coming soon, but unfortunately, the squeeze in the Bollinger Bands by itself does not actually tell us the direction of the next move. So for that, we need to pay attention to other signals, like for example, breakouts above resistance or below support, and other patterns like bullish or bearish divergences, for example, which I'll talk about later in the video. But as I mentioned in the intro of this video, right now, we're actually seeing a rare signal flash that has not happened throughout Bitcoin's entire price history, and that is simply the fact that right now the weekly Bitcoin Bollinger Bands are experiencing the tightest squeeze that we have seen ever throughout Bitcoin's entire price history. Because if you actually zoom out here on the weekly Bitcoin chart, taking a look at the last decade of history, we can actually see in the Bollinger Bands width indicator that right now, this is actually at the lowest point that we have ever seen in Bitcoin's history, meaning right now we're seeing the tightest squeeze in the Bollinger Bands indicator on the weekly time frame that we have seen throughout Bitcoin's entire price history. And so ultimately, this is acting as a major signal on the larger timeframes, pointing towards potentially a massive move coming sometime soon. But it is important to understand that because this is on the weekly time frame, it is not just a short-term signal. It is definitely a longer-term signal, a larger signal. And so this does not tell us that a massive move is coming tomorrow or even next week, but instead it is signaling that a major move is likely coming within the next 1 month or so, because like I said with these other examples, it often takes at least a month to play out, because once again, we're on the larger time frames. Each one of these candles is an entire week. And based on some of these previous examples, it's possible we could see upwards of a $10,000 move in the price of Bitcoin in the coming months, which basically means either a move down towards around 20,000 or even lower, or potentially a move up towards around 40,000 or even higher coming sometime soon within the next 1 to 2 months or so based on this signal. And once again, in order to determine the direction of that move, bullish or bearish, we need to pay attention to our support and resistance levels. Obviously, if a support level breaks, that is a signal pointing towards the bearish direction. If a resistance level breaks, that is a signal pointing towards the bullish direction. But anyway, now getting into the daily Bitcoin chart. Right now, as of recording this video, the price of Bitcoin is running into this important area of resistance, sitting in between around 30,000 to 31,000. And on top of that, we technically still have an active bearish divergence here on the daily time frame, as I've been talking about almost every day over the last 2 weeks or so. And so what this technically means is that it's unlikely we're going to see any significant bullish momentum, at least in the shorter term. And instead, it's likely we're going to see either some choppy sideways price action or potentially some slight bearish price action just in the shorter term here. And in order to invalidate this previous bearish divergence, we ideally need to see more of a reversal in the RSI, forming higher lows and higher highs, and ideally breaking out above this descending line of resistance, which as of right now has not yet happened. But with that being said, even though this bearish divergence is still technically active, we do have limited momentum in the shorter term, talking about the bearish momentum that is, because if you're looking at the daily Bitcoin MACD, even though this is currently looking more bearish than bullish, at the moment it is moving towards a bullish cross and showing very low momentum, which means we should not necessarily expect a massive crash, at least in the shorter term. And now if you zoom into the 8-hour Bitcoin chart, looking at the Fibonacci retracement tool from swing low to swing high, and what we could see over the last 1 day is a perfect bounce from the 38.2% Fibonacci level of support, sitting at around 28.9k, which is right where we saw those 8-hour candle closes confirm. And so once again, at least for now, 28.9k is still the support to pay attention to. We have not yet confirmed a break below that level, but if we do end up confirming a break below that level, then in that case we have the 50% retracement level sitting at around 28,000 to 28.1k, and below that we have the important golden pocket area of support sitting in between around 27,000 to 27.2k. And as for resistance, we have this previous Fibonacci level right here currently acting as resistance, and in fact we've just seen a perfect rejection from that exact level sitting at around $30,000. And now just staying on the 8-hour Bitcoin chart, and right now as of recording this video, the price of Bitcoin is currently playing out a shorter term bullish divergence, just like what we saw back here during June this year and also back here during May. And so once again, as I mentioned in my last video on the channel, history is basically repeating, at least for now in the short term. And what this bullish divergence means for Bitcoin is that it's unlikely we're going to see any significant bearish momentum in the short term, and instead we're likely going to see either some choppy sideways price action, if not a slight bullish relief. And now if you're new to all of this, you might be thinking, well, this bullish divergence contradicts the bearish divergence on the daily time frame, but it is important to understand that these are two completely different time frames. So for example, that bullish divergence I just talked about is not visible at all on the daily time frame, which basically means it's likely the bullish divergence on the 8-hour chart will play out faster than the bearish divergence here on the daily time frame, because usually the smaller patterns play out faster than the larger patterns. But this is all currently occurring within a much larger bullish trend here on the 4-day time frame. So it's important to understand the difference between the different time frames. And now if you're zooming into the much shorter term, taking a look at the 2-hour Bitcoin chart, and over the last 1 to 2 days, we have now seen this previous bear flag pattern complete its final price targets. Because first of all, as I've been saying almost every day over the last 1.5 weeks, we technically have a bearish price target for this bearish flag pattern sitting at around 28.5k to 28.6k, and this bearish price target was active, was in play the moment we saw a confirmed break below that level of support at around 29.7k. But now that we've finally seen the price of Bitcoin hit that technical price target at around 28.5 to 28.6k, this technically completes that previous bear flag pattern, completes the price target obviously, and so right now this pattern is completed. It is no longer in play. But anyway, now getting into the Ethereum part of this video, this is on the daily ETH to US dollar chart, and right now the price of ETH is still consolidating just above this important area of support, sitting in between around $17 1770 to 1820. And as for the daily Ethereum price oscillators right now, these are still looking relatively neutral. First of all, the RSI is basically just chopping around sideways, while the MACD is showing very low momentum on the daily time frame. And so once again, as I've been saying almost every day over the last 1 to 2 weeks, this means it's unlikely we're going to see a significant movement on the daily time frame, at least in the shorter term. And it's much more likely we're going to see relatively mild price action, as in most likely some choppy sideways price action, just like what we've seen over the last 1 to 2 weeks as expected. And now if you're zooming into the 6-hour ETH to US dollar chart, right now the price of ETH is experiencing a perfect rejection from this level of resistance, sitting at around 1870 to 1880. And this is happening just after we saw a perfect bounce from this 50% retracement level at around 1820 to 1830. So at least for now, in the much shorter term here, those are the support and resistance levels to pay attention to. But if we actually saw a break below around 1820, then in that case, the next important area of support is the golden pocket sitting in between around 1760 to 1770. And as for resistance, in case we actually see a breakout back above around 1880 with confirmation, then in that case, we have this level of resistance at around 1930. And also just zooming into the 4-hour ETH to US dollar chart right now, as of recording this video, the price of ETH is actually playing out a bit of a rejection from this descending line of resistance, currently sitting at around 1870. And so once again, the immediate level of resistance to pay attention to in the short term is that level at 1870, based on both this descending line of resistance and that previous Fibonacci level. And now if you want to know how to maximize your profits in crypto, no matter if the price is going to the upside, to the downside, or simply chopping around sideways, then make sure to watch these videos popping up right here on your screen. The video in the top left shows you how to make money if the price is bullish or bearish using AI, and the video in the bottom left shows you how you can easily profit in a choppy sideways price range. But anyway, that's everything that I have to say for today. I really hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video.